Hello, I'm Helen Hansen, and today I'm going to be sharing with you an approach to balancing your brain so you can live your life from your authentic self. Research of this approach shows that it works particularly well, and one can see this key ingredient in the success of many greats, from Mozart to Einstein, Oprah Winfrey, Steffi Graf, and even Angelina Jolie. I'm also going to draw a parallel so you can see how this approach will work in a work environment with your spouse or with your children. I believe that we all have the ability to excel and be brilliant at anything we do, and brain balancing helps us to achieve this. I call it harmonizing the hemispheres. So, how do we harmonize the very different hemispheres in our brain? Well, think of any skill that you have learned, something that you know very, very well. And when you know how to do something well without thinking, it comes because you have a learning of it. You've been educated on it. You understand it, and you have practiced it. Now, many successful decisions come through practice. They're learned through practice. So the more you practice a new skill, it will bring you the confidence to the point where you are able to perform it and execute it without thinking. The same is true for practicing harmonizing the hemispheres of the brain. Training through repetition is key. Think of children learning times tables or the alphabet at school. It is repeated for days, weeks, months, even years sometimes, for it to be able to get to the stage of automatic. Why? Because the brain likes patterns. Repetitions create patterns in the brain which aid understanding. It also aids memory, and it helps one to recognize cues. When you learn something new for the first time, for example, harmonizing your hemisphere processes, you may not know it all after one go. You may not recall everything. You may not even understand everything or pick up on the cues from your day-to-day experiences, which says, here's an opportunity to use a specific process. But that's okay. It comes through practice, and it will happen. So what are the benefits of bringing harmony to the different areas and the different hemispheres in your brain? Well, one of the major transformations you will notice is your ability to create experiences you desire. Many times in life, due to stress or habits that are not beneficial to us or toxic environments, we find ourselves reacting to what's around us and just managing our situation. And eventually living this type of life catches up to us, and we say, what's the point? Why bother? And so an attitude of apathy creeps in. Low self-worth. It can also show through signs of anxiety or even anger. When you choose to train your brain in ways to assist you to create the life you choose, then inspiration enters the equation. And inspiration is a key frequency to a healthy, happy living and to living a life of purpose. Many greats have spoken on this, and one such person I'm going to quote now is Dr. Edward Bach, who is the founder of the Bach flower essences. And he is known to say that every single person has a life to live, work to do, a glorious personality, a wonderful individuality. But when we're not following our purpose, when we are uninspired, then we become a victim of our history. As Dr. John DeMartini, human behavior specialist, so aptly puts it. When we're not inspired with life or our situation or tasks at hand, then emotions bubble over, and it may come out in the form of rude language when talking to our colleagues at work, or we may find ourselves shouting at the children, or our feelings may sink so low that we don't want to communicate with our spouse or partner. Many of my clients say to me that they are inspired in one or two areas of their life, and when they're doing these things, then they're okay. But when they're not, and they don't enjoy what they're doing, then they fall back into destructive thought patterns and behavior patterns. And this is where training of the brain will help you to create that stability and allow inspiration to flow from one area into another. Remembering that the brain likes repetition. And if it learns a pattern in one area, for example a sport which is physical, it will be picked up in other hemispheres, which means that you don't have to learn a new program for all the areas. What you've learned in the physical body, which is connected with your reptilian brain, will also be shared with your prefrontal cortex, which is involved with your decision making and processing abilities, as well as your limbic or midbrain, which is the factory of your feelings. And this is the emotional stabilizer. As an employer, when you are inspired, you will naturally want to empower your staff to grow and develop. If you are working for somebody else and you're inspired, your productivity level is going to soar. And this means that you will have possibly a raise opportunity coming your way, promotions, or the opportunity to broaden your horizons. At home, your spouse will pick up on your inspiration, and you may notice barriers in your relationship slowly crumbling and building up on a different level altogether. Similarly, when you're inspired, when you're with your children, you will want to help them with their life experiences, encouraging them through their dark times, and accept the mistakes they make. Inspired behavior comes naturally. However, the majority of our behavior actually comes from the programming we have received during childhood, infancy, and even during gestation. And this programming comes from other people and other environments, other situations. And this often clouds our innate ability to make inspired decisions and take inspired action. And eventually, over years and decades, when this type of opposing programming to our natural continues, our inspiration starts to wane. And this we see true in many adults today. The desire and drive was there during childhood, during school years, studies, and even early adulthood during the beginning of one's career. But then something changes. And for each of us, it can happen at different times. But in today's stresses, the spark of inspiration may be dwindling already during school years, which is why it's so important for parents to re-inspire themselves, because the parents are always the most crucial teachers for their children. Inspired people take ownership of their life and their situations. Blame moves away, shame dissolves, and instead assertiveness, clarity, and confidence steps in. So why do we so often resort to merely managing our life rather than living it? Well, there are a number of reasons. As just mentioned before, there is the past programming to consider, as well as our current environment and stress. Remember that the brain works with repetitive patterns. So if we continue to react to a situation or a challenge in a certain manner, eventually, after repeating it and repeating it, this becomes the norm. It becomes our comfort zone. So when we want to change, it's difficult because our brain automatically wants to fall back into the route that it knows so well. Now, it's important not to go and blame an environment or a stressor that you have in your life right now, because the aim is not to never have challenges, because challenges are an important part of growth and self-development. The thing to look at is, how are you dealing with the situation and why are you reacting to it in this manner? For example, you may find yourself consciously choosing, when you're not with your children, not to shout at them, and you say, the next time I'm not going to raise my voice. But then you find yourself in a heated situation and time is tight, and before you know it, the anger bubbles up and your voice is becoming louder than you wanted. So why is that? Well, you may say, initially it's the children, they're not listening, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. But in the moment that the children are doing that, and in that moment that the child is not listening to you, you have the choice to understand where the child is at, to respond from a place of love and caring inside you, or you have a choice to go the other route through the anger and the shouting. So there is always that fork in the road. Likewise, if you're in a work environment and you find yourself getting highly irritated with one of your colleagues in particular and wanting to blame it on them or blame it on the environment, or perhaps you're getting a lot of tasks and deadlines and wanting to say, well, you know, things would be better if I didn't have so much to do, if I didn't have all these deadlines and wasn't having to work so late at night. But if you go back and back as far as you can to why am I responding to tasks, to deadlines, to people, to situations in a certain manner that I don't like, that makes me feel uncomfortable or makes me feel highly stressed? Where does this come from? Because it never comes from the immediate source in front of us. That is just the one that pushes our buttons. But it is not the originator of it. So it is really worth your while to do a little bit of soul searching with a journal and a pen and a paper, and just every now and again see how far back you can go. You might not get there the first time round, and it doesn't mean spending minutes or hours on this, but just a few minutes, even just before you go to sleep every night or just upon waking, just to note down your stresses or your irritants in your life and what you think the root cause is. And do that over a period of days, and you might also see your answers changing from day to day as your perspective changes as well. Our life is like a tapestry with all threads weaving into one another, so we need to look at situations from a whole perspective. No matter what the reason is why you currently feel uninspired, and no matter if you're feeling physically tired or mentally challenged, or you feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster right now, you can train inspired change into your life. And imagine how much easier it would be to be able to face stress and to come out on the other side all the better for it, with a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you were the leader in the eye of the storm. The message here is that you have to want to set yourself up for success. And sometimes we need to reach that point of enough before that want and that deep willingness is available. So do you have that willingness and the desire to transform your life into a masterpiece? This is the key to the successful outcome of any of the processes used in harmonizing the hemispheres. Because this urge, this enthusiasm is what will keep you repeating and retraining your brain with new optimizing patterns that will lead you to your heart's desire. I have a goal of living my life with inspiration, of making choices that benefit me and those around me, and of maximizing my potential in all areas of life, and for thriving. Does this resonate with you? If so, I would love you to share these webinars with other people so that they can also gain, because the more people who live with consciousness, the more we will all benefit. In webinar number 2, I will be focusing on a process that can help you anytime, anywhere, whether you're at work, at home, with the children, in a restaurant, with absolute strangers. It's a formula that once you have trained your thinking pattern with it, it will be easy to use and can get you out of many stressful situations. So look out for that in webinar number 2, and until then, be inspired.